I was the one who pushed for a Stray's Christmas dinner. No parents, no politics, just a long table at a downtown bistro with garlands in the windows and a special menu that made everything sound like a fairy tale. I started the group chat, picked the place, even called for the reservation because I like being the person with a plan. And I invited my ex. In my head, it made sense. Caleb and I had been together for most of my early 20s. We're the kind of exes who never scorch the earth, who still swap dog pictures and send "hope you're good" on birthdays. He had a new girlfriend now, Jess, all big eyes and quiet shoes, and they were between apartments after his lease fell through. He'd also been in and out of work. Startups, layoffs, the soft tragedies of modern adulthood. My boyfriend, Noah, had met him once at a mutual friend's barbecue and survived it. My logic was that we were all grown-ups, and it was Christmas, and generosity is part of the season. Noah didn't push back when I told him. He said, "If you're comfortable, I'm comfortable," and meant it the way he means everything. Calmly, like the center of a table you can put hot dishes on. He's the most solid man I've ever dated. He keeps jumper cables in his trunk and snacks in his glove box for when people get hangry. He knows how to coax Wi-Fi back to life and how to lower his voice when mine climbs onto a ledge. I didn't mean to test that voice. I really didn't. The bistro looked like the inside of a snow globe. White twinkle lights, candles in jars, pine everywhere. We were 8. Me and Noah, my best friend Priya and her husband, my coworker Dan and his on-off girlfriend, and then Caleb and Jess at the end near the window where fake snow drifted down whenever the door opened. Caleb hugged me like a brother who remembers your middle school haircut. "You look good, Mats," he said, using the nickname I should have retired and never did. Jess smiled politely and asked where the restroom was. Noah shook both their hands and delivered his polite, no-threat smile. The one that makes strangers breathe easier. The specials board sang about prime rib and sea bass with a burr whatever. The server recommended the prefix, so festive. And I nodded too fast because a fixed price felt like control. I ignored the part where drinks were extra. For the first hour, it was exactly the picture I wanted to post. Friends clinking glasses, me and Priya laughing at something ridiculous Dan said, Noah leaning back with his arm on the chair behind me, the room warm enough to fog the windows. Caleb told a charming story about trying to assemble an IKEA wardrobe in a sublet with a ceiling fan that kept hitting him in the head. Jess laughed at his punchlines on delay, like she was translating a dialect. When the server swung by with a second round, I clocked Caleb's hand grazing his empty wallet under the table. Stupid muscle memory from when we used to split everything. Jess ordered a third glass of Prosecco, like a person who believed in bubbles the way other people believe in magic. The bread basket emptied. The mains arrived. Someone ordered another bottle of red because it felt like we were inside a commercial for joy. Then the check came. Tucked into one of those black leather folios like a little book of judgment. I'd always thought of myself as a generous person. My parents were immigrants. Hospitality was our currency. You feed people. You make sure they don't feel small. Caleb had driven me to the night my appendix revolted. He'd talked to my dad at graduation when anxiety froze my tongue. I didn't owe him dinner, but I owed him kindness. That's what I told myself as I reached for the folio, glanced at the number with its holiday surcharge like a slap, and slid it toward Noah with a little smile. I meant to look flirty and grateful. "Babe," I said softly, "would you mind just taking this?" I invited them. You know. It was one sentence. 14 words. They sounded in my head like "you're my partner, we take care of people." They sounded in his like "you're the provider, pay for the man my girlfriend used to love." Noah didn't make a face. He didn't go silent. He looked at me the way he looks at a spreadsheet. Steady, precise. And asked, in a voice only I could hear, "Are you asking me to pay for Caleb and Jess?" "It's Christmas," I said. "He's had a rough year." "It's a nice gesture." I watched the math enter his eyes. My entree, his entree, our 2 cocktails, Priya and her husband insisting they'd Venmo us and actually doing it, Dan trying to overtip because he'd once been a server, and then the extra 2 at the end of the table. Caleb and Jess with the third Prosecco. I added because the hand I was playing needed a card. "You said if I'm comfortable, you're comfortable." He looked at the check again. He didn't ask what, exactly, made me comfortable about using his card as a life raft for the man who still lives in the part of my brain with a skylight. He called the server over, kept his voice even, and said, "Can we split this into 3? We'll take ours on one. Priya and Raj are covering theirs. And Caleb and Jess are on a third." You could feel the temperature change at the table the way you feel the door open in winter. I smiled wide and said, "Oh, it's fine. We can just do it together. Too brightly, too late." "It's okay," Noah said, like a mercy that didn't require consent. "Separate is simpler." Caleb's hand did that little flutter again. White flag. And he said, "No man, we can split ours, of course." Jess looked at me then, eyes like saucers, a tiny shake of her head I didn't know how to read. The server nodded. "Of course, happens all the time." And whisked the black book away like a magician hiding a rabbit. Dessert turned into theater. The table ordered it anyway because people always pretend chocolate fix is awkward. Noah didn't touch his creme brulee. He listened to Dan talk about his boss with that polite half-smile, and slid his card into our folio when it came back without sighing, without making anyone feel cheap. He signed, tipped well, and when the plates were cleared and the coffee was poured, he stood. "I'm going to head out," he said to the table at large, friendly, decent. "Mads, can I talk to you outside for a second?" The cold hit like honesty. We stepped into a wind that smelled like cinnamon from the bakery next door. Inside, our friend's laughter muffled itself against glass. The fake snow still fell on cue. In here, everything was real. "You put me in a position," he said, not angry. "Disappointed, which is worse. I would have gladly paid for you. I would have gladly split the table and tipped extra because servers deserve Christmas too. You asked me to take care of your ex. You didn't ask me before. You didn't offer to split. You slid me the check like it was my role." I told him about hospitality, about my parents, about wanting to be that person. He listened and then said, "Be that person. With your money. I'll Venmo you," I said, ridiculous, and winced at myself. He shook his head. "This isn't about the bill," he said. "It's about you making me a prop in a pageant where you're magnanimous and I'm the wallet. It's about you using my generosity to varnish your nostalgia." "I don't want Caleb," I said quickly. It was true in the way that matters. I don't want his bed or his arguments or his IKEA wardrobe haunted by ceiling fans. But I did want to be the kind of woman who can invite him to a table and have it go smoothly, who can prove to everyone and to herself that she isn't messy. Noah zipped his coat and watched his breath fog. "You're allowed to be kind to your past," he said. "You're not allowed to spend me on it. We're done." "Over a check?" I said, because if I minimized it maybe it would shrink. "Over a pattern," he said. "The DMs with your old friend, you wanted me to understand. The Halloween party where you asked me to grab the Uber for your coworkers. Thanksgiving when you joked you were settling for me in front of your sister. You call it generosity and humor. I feel disrespected." I reached for his hand. He put both of his in his pockets. "Text me when you're home," he said out of habit, and then flinched at his own statement. "Actually, don't. Email me about logistics. I'll bring your spare key to your place tomorrow. I'm canceling New Year's at my brother's. You can go if you want. Please don't post about me. And please don't ask me to sit at tables with men you used to love and pretend it's a Hallmark movie." He kissed my forehead the way you kiss someone in a hospital bed, and he walked away toward his car. Inside, the server was wrapping up the last of our friend's desserts, and Caleb was saying something to Jess with his hand hovering above her shoulder like a bird that can't decide where to land. Back at the table, Priya touched my arm. "Do you want me to say something about the bill?" she whispered, mouth tilted urgently. I shook my head. "He was kind," she added, "because that's who she is. Renaming the thing so it doesn't sound like cruelty." Caleb's face was soft when he looked at me. "I would have paid, he said. I wasn't expecting." "I know," I said. Jess sipped her water and glanced away like she wished she were anywhere else. For once, I didn't explain myself. I asked for the check for our third, paid it with my card, tipped too much, and wished the server happy holidays like a person who had finally learned a very expensive lesson. I didn't text Noah that night. I sat on my couch with the tree lights off and the TV on mute, and typed an apology I didn't send. I asked you to be a sponsor for my image. You're a partner. You deserved better. I deleted it because it was for me, not for him. The next morning, an email arrived at 8:12 a.m. Subject: keys/NY/boundaries. I'll swing by at 6 p.m. to drop your spare key. Leave my hoodie with the navy stripes in a bag in the lobby. Please let my sister know yourself that we won't be coming to New Year's. I've already told her I'm bowing out. She won't ask questions. I'm not going to tell anyone what happened. I'd appreciate it if you didn't either. I don't want to be a character on your Instagram. No hard feelings. Just clarity. N. He didn't block me. He didn't subtweet. He didn't turn me into a story you tell after 2 margaritas when you want your friends to pat your hand and call you generous. He quietly put my door key on a marble lobby table, texted dropped and nothing else, and removed himself from the calendar invites of my life. He wins because he refused the role I tried to write for him. Financier of my magnanimity, priest absolving my past. He wins because he didn't perform rage or punish me with pettiness. He picked dignity. He paid his part and not my debts. He left at dessert and let the rest of us figure out the bill. I told my mother that night what I'd done. She sighed that old world sound and said, kindness never requires someone else to pay. I added it to the list of things that are obviously true once you've learned them the hard way. If you're waiting for me to say I ran to Noah's place in the rain, and he took me back, that's not this story. I did send one final email after 2 weeks, not to win him but to give him the only gift I had left. I won't invite my ex to your table again. I won't put bills in your hand without asking. Thank you for not making me smaller when I made you feel small. He didn't respond. He doesn't owe me a bow on the ending. I still like being the person with a plan. My plans now include splitting checks like an adult, using my own card when I'm feeling generous, and losing the habit of trying to prove that I'm above jealousy by staging scenes that make me look gracious, and leave someone I love humiliated. I am not above jealousy. I am not above the cost of my choices. Noah wins because he chose himself without making me a villain on the way out. That's rarer than I realized. That's something I should have been generous enough to do for him before he had to do it for himself. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. She tried to play hostess with her boyfriend's wallet, inviting the ex, sliding the check, and calling it Christmas spirit. He didn't explode. He split the bill, set boundaries, ended it at dessert, and walked out with dignity. Lesson learned: generosity is great. Just don't spend other people to look like a saint. If you liked this video, please subscribe for more. Thanks and see y'all tomorrow.